Recording, it picks up everything you see.
Okay.
So it's recording now. Everyone have a great meeting.
Okay. All right, let's see. Mindy's on, okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 7 o'clock. I'm a very punctual person. Welcome to the class or course. It's called UFO and Paranormal Review. For those of you who haven't been in the 2 prior classes, I teach this course in the adult ed programs. I've been doing so for 41 years. I started in 1980. I've combined the paranormal with the UFO arena and with the conspiracy. So it's kind of all intertwined, as we know. And I am a normal person. I work a 9 to 6 job, and I'm a manager of accounting departments. So I'm heavily left brain, but this is my kind of esoteric arena because I've always been a psychic and I like to share that information. I read and study and research. So the material I bring to you is material not of my own, but material that I found replicated in my research. And I feel when it's replicated in many venues, it's worth considering. Then there's always that gut feeling that it resonates with you. We've had 2 great classes already, January 13th. We covered some material, January 20th. I'm going to review that in just a moment. Tonight, we're going to be talking about reincarnation. And next week, just to let you know, the calendar, this is a 6-week course. Next week, we're going to be talking about ancient civilizations, and I'm going to talk about Atlantis and Lemuria, the Anunnaki, the inner Earth, the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, ancient hidden technology, and archaeological discoveries. The following week, February 10th, we're going to talk about UFOs, encounters of the first, second, third, and fourth kind. I pretty well focus more on the third and fourth kind. I'm not that interested in things flying through the sky. I'm kind of more interested in talking to abductees at the various UFO conferences that I go to, which is fascinating. You sit next to these people that you think are totally normal, and then all of a sudden someone says, raise your hand if you've been abducted, and all these people raise their hands, and you want to go under the chair so no one sees you, but fascinating. And we're going to talk about the types of the aliens and how long have they been here, what's their agenda, and kind of throw some things out in that arena. And the last week I have February 17th is a secret space program. I did a presentation at the MUFON group in February of last year. It was a screen presentation. I do have the screens online in the MUFON, Connecticut MUFON, if you want to see them. And it is very detailed and it has a lot of information to share. Now, as we go through these courses, I said to you that if you find anything of interest that you would love to pursue a little bit, or to perhaps have another class where you may have some expertise and would like to spend 15 minutes sharing some of your views, let me know. And I'll ask Mike if we can add another week or 2. I'm supposed to start teaching in the adult ed programs in March, but I still have a couple more weeks in February and early March. So we can see what we can fit in if you really enjoy this. Okay. Last week, the past couple of weeks are setting us up pretty much for tonight to a large degree. Last week, actually all 2 weeks, we talked a little bit about this. I'm gonna close this for a minute. There we go. This is the core of all of our information. This is the core of what this course is kind of revolving around, and that is declaring that the soul, which is a particle of God, is independent of the physical body. That we as a soul come into the physical body, which is created by our mother and father. It is an animal, and it is, I feel, independent of the soul, meaning it could operate and function on Earth without a soul being in it, which lends itself to a whole nother conversation as far as, are there soulless people walking around? We're also going to talk next week a little bit about clones, about hybrids, about aliens maybe occupying, shape-shifting, that kind of thing in the physical form. But when we talked last week about the near-death experiences, we talked about the separation of the soul coming out of the physical form and identifying itself as I am. I am up here. I look at the body down there on the gurney. They're working to save me, but my consciousness, my knowledge, my calculations, my analytical ability, all is here in the soul. So we talked about that last week, and tonight we're going to be dealing with that because we're talking about reincarnation. Another piece that we talked a little bit about last week is the physical body and having the various auras. I teach how to see auras, and the auras that we see around a human body are indicative of the soul peeking out, basically. And as you can see, number one, number two, the physical form and the etheric body are kind of dense material, and that terminates and dies and dissolves upon death. Then we reside into this, which is the soul, which is included of the astral, the mental, and the spiritual body. That is what goes on somewhere else. We're going to be we talked about the somewhere else last week. We talked about Earth and the astral world. And the astral world is what seems to be some sort of place. People that go there say, well, yes, I'm there and I'm wandering around and I see God or Jesus. I see buildings, I see grounds, I see water, I see physical forms that kind of suggest that the astral world is a dense enough place that you can touch, be hugged, and be, pulled around. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is, okay, you're up here after death, you're going to come back, and you're going to come back to Earth. It is a reincarnative event. All right. Over the years, I've been involved with past life regression therapy. In fact, I changed my room. I'm in my living room where I have literally in this room been involved in hypnotizing and regressing hundreds of people. Now, I don't do that. I'm not a professional, but I had 3 professional hypnotists that would come here to my house. I would bring my students and whomever, lay them out head to toe here in my living room, and they would hypnotize the group and take them back to previous lives. We actually spent months in analyzing and capturing data first of people who go through a past life regression. Then we took them through the death experience and asked them questions. And I have questionnaires like this high in my other room where I actually created a book. But it was reviewed by John White, and John White was very analytical and very scientific. He felt I did not have enough scientific data. I'm more of a touchy-feely type person, but he wanted more scientific data. But now, since then, there's been a million books put out there of past life regressions and life between life and all that kind of stuff. So I never published mine. But meanwhile, I have been impressed with what happens to people when they go through a past life regression. The material and the information that they come out of these people without hardly asking any questions. I mean, we'll ask them a question. What are you doing now? And blah, 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 blah. They'll go on and on and on. And we just ask them a simple question. So they're seeing something. They are reviewing something. Something is coming into their mind. And I've done it myself at least 10, 15 times, maybe 20 times. And once you're under, and I'm not deep under, I'm kind of, you're relaxed to the point where if someone yelled fire, you could probably stand up and get out of the building. So I'm not in a somnambulistic stage, but you get information that starts coming to you and it's a surprise to you. You're aware of what you're saying to the hypnotist, and it's information that's almost coming to you as if you are either in the person or you're seeing the person and you relate to this person. And we usually do past life regression as a therapy. We ask you, is there a relationship issue you have today? Is there a sickness, an illness, a pain in your body? What, a phobia, a fear? And then we tell you to focus on, when did that start? And you come up with these amazing stories of the 1400s, and, okay, fine. We record it, or we let you, live it. And then we tell you to leave it in your past. It does not belong in this world today. And that is our healing point, where the people actually will be healed. So if it works, we're not going to analyze it to try to prove that it is true or false. There are so many different things with your mind that we can't say absolutely this is a past life regression. You absolutely live that life. We won't say that. We don't know where you got that information. We don't know why it's coming to you. But if it's helping you, then that's fine. That's all we want. Now, because of that, I have done a lot of research, and because of that, I was drawn into the UFO arena, because in past lives they were talking about aliens and beings from the stars, and that was a whole different arena. But let's go back to the simplistic format of reincarnation. And I want to mention this book. Now, this book is very hard to come by. It's a very old book. It's called Life Before Life. And it's a psychologist named Helen Wambach. And this was interesting because I actually had this book stolen from me. When I have people over at my house, I put books out so everybody can look, and this one disappeared. Someone found this at a bookstore and got it for me, got it back for me. But what happened was this psychologist was regressing people back to the womb, okay, thinking, I'm going to document what people experience in the womb. We all know that we've been in the womb. Maybe some of you don't have belly buttons, but most of us have been in the womb. And she was documenting, what do you hear? Music? Can you hear your parents talking to you? That kind of thing. Well, guess what? 700 people said, no, I'm not in the womb. And she would say, what are you? Who are you? And they said, oh, I'm the soul, and I'm coming back, and I'm attached to the fetus. And but I'm not going to be in the womb, because that's very claustrophobic in there, and I'm a soul, and I'm flying around, and I'll watch, I'll observe. I observe my parents, but I'm not in the womb until really the time of birth. And that was fascinating, the material. So in this book, she goes through and asks certain questions. She decided to start documenting what these people were saying. And it was amazing information that I want to share with you a little bit about them coming back. For example, she asked them, did you choose to be born? Now, she had to elevate herself to the point of researching some of this information of them coming from somewhere else to Earth, to this baby, into the womb. And so she got some information, and she started asking some very good questions. And she said, did you choose to be born? Now, that question alone suggests to us that we were somewhere before, and we're coming back, or we're coming here for the first time. And we had a little discussion whether or not we're all souls that have been on Earth, and we get reincarnated back to Earth, and we get reincarnated back to Earth. That's not necessarily true. And as I mentioned before, Dolores Cannon, in her book, God, the Convoluted Universe, has a lot of regressions where people are saying that they came from other places to Earth, but they all still have to come into the fetus. So she said, did you choose to be born? And the amazing thing is 68% said they did not want to return. They did not want to return. They are very happy wherever they are. Remember last week we talked about the astral world. It's full of love. It's full of positive aspects. People care about you. There is no pain. There is no suffering. Why would you want to leave, But it starts in your heart. You kind of start saying, oddly enough, we're karmically tied with people. And we're going to be talking about karma a lot tonight. We tend to be karmically tied with people because we love them, okay? Think of the people that you love today. And when you're on the other side, you may not be with them, but you would like to be with them again. The love of your life, your husband, your wife, your children, there's a bond there that you would love to be with these people again. So even if you don't want to necessarily come back, you'll come back because you want to continue the love that you have with these people. So some of them said that they were enthusiastic, they were very excited. And once they reviewed their next lifetime, they got a little more excited and they saw the potential. So they were happy to come back. They were able, some of them mentioned that they wanted to see and taste and touch again, okay? Isn't it amazing, as souls, let's say if we were hovering around Earth and we look there and there's the waterfall and there's the beautiful water or the ocean. And if as soul, you can't touch that, you know? So we actually, as a soul, to experience this 3D world, we have to be in a physical form. And that physical form is the human body, which is an avatar. It is something here designed for maybe our souls, who knows? And our soul comes in and occupies this body for the period of time until it dies, and then the soul leaves. So when we're in here, we can see and taste and touch and experience this world. Some of the people said that they really weren't ready, that they wanted more rest. And some of them were actually depressed that they had to come back and live another lifetime. And some of them were pushed. But as I was reading some of the books, and I think these books are excellent, the Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. I was reading this one again last night. And the people said that they don't feel that they're coerced in coming back, that there are beings, there are guides, there are masters, there are partners up there in the heaven world. They allow them to respectfully reach a point in their decision making that they want to come back. So if they are dead set about not coming back for a while, they're like, fine, rest, you know, but you're not going to learn and you're not going to grow unless you go back to Earth, because Earth is a school. Earth is a game, and it has all these rules and regulations and has all these opportunities with a overriding attitude that we are coming here to learn love, unconditional love. Jesus was an example of that. He showed that you could live in this nasty, horrible, rotten world and still have the power to rise above the hate and the emotions and love. So unconditional love is one of our main attributes. So coming back, they chose to come back, or they're not forced to come back until they're ready, but they are encouraged. And I don't know how many years, many different books say time is a hard thing to analyze on the other side. How often does a soul come back? How quickly does a soul reincarnate? If they come too quickly, they carry with them some of the attributes that they had from before, which is not a good thing. We do forget when we come back. It is a shield that we forget who we were in past lives until you have me regressing you and you learn them all again. But there is a screen. So we're not supposed to come back too quickly until we've had an opportunity on the other side in the astral world, up here in the astral world, to get rid of all those nuances of whoever we were before. We also, when we die and cross over to the astral world, we assimilate all of the lifetimes we've had before. So you start remembering, oh yeah, I was that person, I did this and I did that. And okay, I'm gonna take all of this together, not just this life we just left, but all of these things together and kind of decide who we are as a soul and where we're going to be. Now, just like school, they say there are souls that are very aggressive in learning and growing and wanting to expand their knowledge. And then there's the ones that are kind of goofing off, you know, they're kind of not all that excited about school. So there is different levels, all kinds of levels of souls. There's the high progressive, and then the ones that are kind of laid back, and then there's the ones that are kind of evil, rotten. But anyway, one of the other questions she asked, which I thought was very interesting, was there a reason that you chose the 20th century? Why did you want to incarnate now? And the responses were like 41% said there was no reason, it was just happened to be. But 51% said they chose to come here for reasons. And some of the biggest reasons, and I think you'll resonate with this because you're all kind of enlightened souls, is that there's going to be on earth an incredible raising of consciousness. There's going to be more advanced spirits coming, souls coming now, because Earth is going through some major changes, and that there's going to be an awakening, and they wanted to be a part of this. When I do palm reading, which is very interesting, over the past 10 years of palm reading, I have seen things in the palm that concerned me is a bad word, surprised me. And it's all down here where it's your age when you start getting into your older age of the 40s and the 50s. And I was seeing all this sudden changes, like this huge in palm after palm after palm. I was seeing this huge shift. And the huge shift means our lives that we're used to, we're like going along, all of a sudden something major changed. So because I was seeing it in so many different palms, I felt it wasn't each one of them changing, but perhaps somehow our environment changing. So that kind of coincides with these people saying that they were coming back because this is going to be historical times, changes that we haven't seen in a long time. And I think we all, looking at the political arena and things that are happening today, can see that there is a, shall we say, a war between the dark and the light, and it is ongoing. So perhaps this is what they were sensing and wanting to be a part of. One of the other questions, another question she asked is, did you choose your sex? Now, the soul is neither male nor female. The soul is, I am, okay? We come in and use a physical body as a male or as a female, or nowadays either or, neither nor. But we come, and she said, okay, why did you choose your sex? Now, 24% said, no, I didn't need, it didn't matter. But a lot of them said, I chose a male because it allows me to be more scientific. I analyze things a little bit different. It is a natural tendency to be more dominant, so I could learn how to operate society this way. Because, oddly enough, my partner chose to be a woman. All right, before we come back, we have an opportunity to work with others, other souls, and say, okay, I'm going back. Anybody want to go back with me? And you get a few of them. Yeah, I'll go back. And okay, what do you want to be? Okay, I want to be your husband. I'm going to be your wife. I'm going to be your kids. I'm going to be your best friend. So you kind of navigate their lessons with your lessons, and the opportunity to help each other along the path of our lives. I keep showing this. We have this blueprint that we send out, and each one of us will have a blueprint. And these blueprints would cross over and help us to meet up with these people so that, in fact, they can be our husband or wife or our kids or our best friends. So we do choose the sex of being a male or a female to help accommodate what we want to do in life and how we want to work effectively with others. So the women said, I chose to be a female because the partner was going to be a male, but I also feel that it was easier to learn creative love, and that there is more of an expressive, sensitive side, and I wanted to learn that in this lifetime. But also a lot of the women said, I want to be a portal for other souls. Okay, what a wonderful thing to say, I want to come here to allow other souls to come through and give birth to children so that they also have a body. So that was kind of some of those things. And we're going to get into more about relationships and how the law of karma and reincarnation intertwines with that. Now, she said to them, another question was, why are you here on Earth? And of course, there's a million different answers. A lot of them, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, is to be here with somebody in particular. Anytime that we are in love and care and are connected with love with somebody, we have the opportunity of being with them again, over and over again. Not every lifetime, because each lifetime we have an opportunity to learn something different. But often, if I hypnotize somebody today, the people that they see in their past, they go, oh, that person back there in the 1400s, that's my mother now. And oh, that person is my daughter now. Okay. So there is definitely a link between your past and today. So many of these people coming back said, I want to be with certain people. I want to establish new relationships with new people. Every opportunity, every time you meet somebody, you have an opportunity of making this person more important in your life and in your future. If you have a hate relationship with somebody, this person will probably resurface in your future, because hate and love always bring people back together. So karmically, you're tied with that person. And I advise my students, one of the best ways that you can avoid somebody that you really hate in the future is to neutralize your reaction to them. Just non them, okay? You know, if as soon as you hate them back, as soon as you're angry and you go after them, that's going to just keep the karma going. It's going to link you up with that person forever. So neutralize them, you know, just kind of like, okay, I accept who you are, accept what you do, yell at me, hate me, but I'm not going to give it back to you. To me, you know, everything's cool and that's it. So you have to kind of neutralize the hate relationship. Maybe that's the way that you can stop being with these people. Why did you come here on Earth? To be a nurturer? Okay, a wonderful place to learn to nurture. I want to spread peace and light. I want to get along with others. I want to relieve pain, hurt, and sorrow. So here's people that want to come and actually be a healer in some way. I want to learn patience. This is personal stuff. I want to relieve loneliness. I want to learn strength. I want to learn respectability. So they come for personal gains too. And that's when you're going to get challenges. When you create your life path and you need to learn lessons, you're going to have certain lessons, confrontations in your life path that's going to say, okay, here's your opportunity to be a responsible person. And you have free will. You can like, oh, no, not today. I'm not going to do that. And you can avoid it. So by the time you get to the end, did you learn all your lessons? Did you actually embrace the things that you projected that you wanted to learn? Maybe not. Maybe not. So they come in with good intentions. Again, you're a higher level soul when you're on the other side. You're not caught up in the emotions. So you're more at a 30,000 feet view, and you feel very more comfortable with caring and loving. But when we come down here, you get caught up in the emotions. Now, a lot of these people coming back on Earth want to learn and develop a higher consciousness. And they wanted, oddly enough, some of them mentioned that they wanted to contact space brothers and bring that knowledge to Earth to make us a more galactic place. Okay, so she asked another question. Have you ever known anyone before? And absolutely. We are connected, not always, but we are connected with people that we have known. We're going to talk a little bit more about why, because you chose your parents. You chose your place and your environment so that you could develop and grow in the way that you want. She asked, when does a soul enter the fetus? All right. 33% said that they did not enter the fetus until right before birth. Now, this has to do with, again, the soul being a free, light being coming into a very close, small fetus. And 20% said that they were attached to the fetus but spent their time outside. What they do is they actually watch their mother, watch their parents. I had a regression where this was amazing. My mother was sitting on the couch. I could see her belly, but I was up here. I was observing her. I was watching. She was watching TV, and I would look around. I could see the surroundings. I could feel her mood. I could feel her mood swings. I mean, she was hilarious, but I could sense all this. Again, a level of awareness, a analytical aspect that you would not expect from a baby, that is assessing the mother, assessing the birth arena, and the father, knowing whether or not they want you to come back, etc. So they are aware, and they all said that at the point of time of being born, this is when they are pulled into the fetus to help in the birth, to help in the birth. All right. This is not a baby that's coming out. It is a baby and a soul together. And as this baby is coming through the mother's birth canal, the soul is helping the mother. It is helping the baby. It is going, rah, rah, let's push, let's go. Okay. I mean, this is amazing, amazing information, that the soul is very involved with the whole birth process. She asked, do you feel anything? And they go, absolutely. I feel the constrictions. I can feel the pain. I can feel the coming out. I can feel the distress of my mother. And as I come out, all of a sudden, I'm aware of the birthing room. I find, and these are the souls talking about being born. I find they say that the doctors are gentle and kind, but aloof. Okay. They're just, this is production. All right. So there is no connection with the child. So now I'm thinking how wonderful it is that today they almost as quickly as possible take that little baby and put it on the mother's chest for bonding. And now you almost see why. This is like very important, because the baby is just like in this bright light. And they said the lights are bright and it's cold and they're slapping me and making me cry. And I just need to be hugged, you know. So it's a beautiful thing. They talk about the nurses being their attitudes. They talk about, as they're announced, it's a boy, that the mother was hoping for a girl, and there may be upset and sad. They're aware of the emotions in that room. You know, this is amazing. It's not a little baby that doesn't know anything. It's a conscious soul that's assessing everything. Let me give you an example. I had a past life where I went through the birth, and it was back in the 1800s. I was in a home delivery, and they called for the doctor, and the doctor showed up for my delivery, and the doctor was drunk. He was smashed, but he's trying to perform, you know, and get me, but I'm being born breech. My feet are coming out first. So we're in trouble. And the doctor is intoxicated, and he's trying to pull me out, and literally pulling me out by my feet. And my neck was turned in the birth canal. And every time he pulled my feet, my neck would jerk. He did this literally until he broke my neck. And he pulls me out finally. And I realized my mother was gone. And I don't know if she was dead, had died, but I don't think so. I think she had passed out from the pain and what all was going on. And I remember him holding me up like this by my feet. And I was laying there, I was limp, I was dead. He broke my neck. And my soul had gone out and was hanging over here watching. I was so devastated. I had gone to so much planning, so much work to get that life ready. And I was so excited, and I was so enthusiastic and wanted to be born, and then to have that snatched from me and have that terminated by happen chance, you know, a drunk doctor. Of course, nothing's by chance. Maybe everything is meant to be. Was it a karmic lesson for me? Was it, who knows what it was? I didn't get that in the regression, but I do remember being very intelligent, very aware, And I analyzed that the doctor was drunk. I analyzed that my mother was gone. And I analyzed that the idiot broke my neck. Now I'm dead. So it was a very fascinating experience. Again, coming back to the souls that seem to be highly intelligent and in the fetus, the physical body, which we have to stop thinking of them as just babies, of being mindless babies. I'll pause just a minute. Does anybody want to say anything here or share something at this point? Does it make any sense? Is this amazing information? Interesting information? Again, so much information, it's a little tiny book. But she did a great job. 700 people she did and analyzed all their information. Anything? No? Okay, let me continue. They did ask it, are you aware of your mother's feelings? And they said, yes. You know, I knew my mother was fearful. She was scared. I tried to calm her. I tried to make her feel better. This is amazing. This is the baby saying that they're helping the mother. They also asked about, let's see. I already said, when does the soul enter the body? Okay, that was about all that I had for this. So what we're going to do now is talk about reincarnation and the whole concept of reincarnation. Reincarnation is based on what we call the law of karma, K-A-R-M-A. The law of karma is something very simple. It's in the Bible. What you sow, you reap. What you send out comes back. So the law of karma basically says that whatever you do to others is going to come back to you. If you are mean, rotten, and ugly and harmful to others, then it's going to come back to you in the form of kind of bad luck, negativity. So you kind of reap what you sow. If you do good to others, then good luck's going to come back to you. And it's not good luck. It is because you've been kind. It's because you've done good things to others. So when you die and you pass over and go to the other side, you meet with these beings on the other side. And it's a fascinating information. They talk in this book, and I had never really heard about that, but that the life selection, and we talked a little bit about that last week too, the life selection, and going to the ring of destiny. I had never heard this before to this degree, and this is from this book here. And they talk about, after you've spent some time assessing who you are and what you want to do in your next life, then it's time to come back. And it is time for you to choose and to construct your next life. In this book, which surprised and scared me a little bit, is they talked about going to the ring of destiny. And the ring of destiny is where they choose the new body. They say they go into an amphitheater. I think somebody a couple weeks ago mentioned this too. They go into an amphitheater or a big room, and there are screens. Now, I was raised Southern Baptist. To me, dying, going to the other side is like going to heaven. I really didn't think there'd be computers and screens and things, but this may be the way they present the information to us so that we can resonate with it. Okay, we're all kind of used to seeing that, so maybe this is their way of saying, okay, now you've got to choose your next life. So you're going to choose your next life. You're going to start basically with saying, how have I failed in the past? What have I achieved? And what do I need to learn, to grow, and to achieve my goals? Guides help you figure this out. You can help figure it out. And when you've kind of decided, then you incorporate other people. And you go into this ring of destiny. And I was amazed to read, in this particular case, there was a person, a man, who wanted to be born again, and he wanted to be a musician. And the guides and people in this arena found for him lives that would support that. All right. So he wanted to, he had lived in New York his prior life, had died very suddenly at the age of 24. But while he was going around New York, he would go by Symphony Hall. He would hear the music and he would play his own accordion or little whatever. And he wanted very much to be involved in music. So in this life that they're projecting, they said, okay. And we have to kind of wonder, how does it work that you can see lives in the future and choose them, which is what these people are doing. So you go back to the whole concept or idea of maybe we are living in a hologram, and these are like holodecks. I don't know. It's too much for me to figure out. But I don't know. Did you hear? I'm a sidetrack. What was it? 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there was a meeting of all the astrophysicists, and maybe some of you know this, and physicists, and they met in New York. And they had a meeting where they all got together and they were talking about black holes and quantum mechanics and all of these things. And one of the problems is that everything, these scientists, everything should be able to be numbers. And you can figure everything out and you do the little diagrams or whatever, and it should come up with a result. And there's things that are affecting this, and they're not coming up with the results of measuring time and space and the quantum thing, black holes. These things weren't making any sense. So they started working with these figures and these values and sharing the information. And they were saying, okay, we've got something missing. And when they worked together over a couple of days, one of the things they came out with is that it seems that everything is vibrating at a number. You've seen these little 100s, 100, everything, whether it's music, whether it's space energy, they all seem to be vibrating at a digital number, a vibration. And if everything can be broken down to digitals, they said, therefore, digitals equal some sort of hologram. And these astrophysicists, these brilliant scientists, came up with three things that was kind of interesting. Number one is that they do believe somehow the whole universe is kind of a holographic numbers vibrational thing. And if it's a numbers vibrational things, it means something created it. They also came up with that there is an end. Somehow they were projecting numbers way out and they were finding that there is an end. Well, that's scary. We're supposed to be the universe is endless. And I'm not going to get into this very much because I don't even understand all this, but I took away from reading the article these three things. The third thing that was fascinating is that black holes sucks in data. And if it sucks in data, it's taking data somewhere. So that was kind of interesting. Where is it taking it? So you kind of wonder if we are in a holographic universe. And I'm going to whatever for just a moment. I was at a UFO conference 2 years ago in February or March. And there was a gentleman that was living in Peru. Big guy. I wish I remember his name off the top of my head. Big fella. I mean, 6'5", 260 pounds, big, huge. I mean, looked like a amazing man. And he does tours in Peru. And he said a couple of things up on stage. And one of the things, of course, he says that there's a lot of Pleiadians in Peru, which was kind of fascinating. Remember, I'm in a UFO conference, so they talk about these kind of things. But one of the interesting things is he heard from the native population that there was a portal in that particular area in Peru. And in this portal, you could go in it if you came up with a certain sound. So he was intent on trying to open up that portal. So he talked to people and they talked about what sounds and music and instruments or whatever to try to resonate and get that sound. So he worked on that. And he one day got his family together and some other the people that were supporting this. And they started doing the sound. And the sound, they worked on it and worked on it. All of a sudden, lo and behold, he says, a portal opens. He's like, oh yeah. He goes through it, closes up behind him. He cannot see his family. He says, I was in what was like a room. Now, this is a man supposedly who actually experienced this. He says, I'm in like this room. And he says, I could feel a floor. It was all foggy, sort of. I knew there was like a ceiling and walls. And I'm like, uh-oh, where am I? And he's like, where did they go? Where am I? And where did they go? And I want to go back. He was terrified. And he starts yelling and screaming, trying to see if they could hear him, because they have to be right there. You know, it has to be just like a little whatever. And he's yelling and there's nobody answering. And he all of a sudden hears a voice. And the voice says, calm down, calm down. I can help you get back. And he's like, who are you? Who are you? What are you? And the man, or this voice says, I'm the gatekeeper for this portal. And this man goes, what do you mean you're a gatekeeper for the portal? He says, we created somehow, playing with whatever, we created an extra dimension. And this is the portal to the dimension. And I need to kind of control who or what comes through. And he says, I'll help you get back. And I think there was a lot more information that was exchanged between this gentleman and the voice. And sure enough, he said, do this, and the portal opened, and this man jumped back, and there was his wife and the family. They're all there. So he was just momentarily somewhere else. So here again, we go into some portals and holograms. We're going to talk more about this too when I talk about the secret space program, because we've been going through portals for years and years and years and years. And we're going to talk about that. But here was an example of someone experiencing this. So when we go to choose our bodies, and this is where I was started before I went off to the side, when we go to choose our bodies, we're in this ring of destiny room and getting to see a projected life in New York. But this man was also shown a projected life in Paris and in Brazil. And all of these people that he was seeing in this projection were going to be involved in music. And he was very excited about this family in New York City because the family was very wealthy. And he felt that they would help stimulate him into practicing and becoming very good in music and accomplishing his goal. So he did choose to go. He said he chose the one in New York. But one of the things he was saying, which was fascinating to me, is that as he was reviewing this person in New York, this person that he was going to be, it was a man, as he saw the child and then this teen, and he was seeing this, he was able to actually almost project himself into this movie. He could smell, and he could smell the hot dogs being sold on the street of New York City. He could hear the cars beeping. He could really, really feel and taste and experience this. How can that happen? How can that be? If you're in the astral world, you're not even born, you're just thinking of being born, and you have this level of experience that is incredible to me. In addition to that, they spend time with the people that they're going to interact with as they come back. Okay, remember I said, I'm going back to Earth. Who wants to go with me? And Sam and Joe and Bill and your daughter and people that you were with before all say, I'm ready to go back too. Let's all go back and spend time together. But how are we going to meet each other? How are we going to find each other? So they have to plan that life plan so that their pathways cross and intersect. But even then you have to have some sort of trigger. So they work and spend some time creating triggers in their dynamics, and so that they will know that person. Something's going to be a trigger that says that person's important to me. And I think all of you have been through life, have met people that there's an instantaneous connection to. And you almost say, gee, I feel like I've known them before. Well, the odds are you probably have known them before. So you have this connection with these people. You're going to be with them in the future. However, if you are destined to be, let's say, your husband and wife, and you said, okay, I'll be the guy, you be the woman, we're going to meet up as we get through life, and we're going to get married. But guess what? As you're cruising along, maybe you have that little fork in the road and you took the left and the right instead of going where you're supposed to go. So guess what? You're not going to meet them because you were going like this. You deviated. You went down here because you have free will. But they're on this line, and you've deviated. So you may not meet them when you're supposed to. And sometimes this is so overwhelming if things are not planned right. And I'll use an example. We have found through regressions that some people say that when they are being born, you choose your zodiac sign, you choose your numerology. I love doing numerology. Doing your numerology charts to find out who you are as a soul, what you chose as your power, and what is your karma problems. And when they come in, they choose this energy, they choose these powers, they choose a place, they choose all these connections. It's like our astronauts when they went to the moon, if they ever went there, but if they went to the moon, they have to coordinate a certain time projection to leave Earth to get there when the moon's in the right place, or they'll miss it, okay? Well, these souls said, I was premature. Something happened, and I was born 3 months early or 2 months early, and they have a choice. If that wasn't a predestined event, because things do happen, if that wasn't a predestined event, they have a choice of deciding whether or not to continue, but maybe won't have all those connections that they were given to and planned, or to pull out. And that's why some of the little babies will die and pull out, because it'll be a waste of time. It'll be a waste of time. So you have to project all of these dynamics. And but again, I had never studied astrology. To me, it is mathematical, amazing science. And you really have to spend a lot of time with your ascending signs and all these kind of things. It's not just, I was born a Sagittarian. So I do respect all that, but I'm not knowledgeable about it. But I am very knowledgeable about numerology, and I love that. So I do see that there are powers that we are born with and that affect us through our lives. So you are in a kind of projection, a window, a life plan as you start your life. All right. I mentioned I want to mention one thing about this person too. There was one other person that in this book, which had a very interesting story. And it was a woman who had lived a very powerful life as a Norseman, a Viking. And she said, it was amazing. The life I had as a male in that lifetime as a Viking. He had an amazing body. He was a free spirit, went wherever he wanted to go, did whatever he wanted. He loved war. He loved fighting. He loved stealing. He loved everything. But he was a free spirit. He had no children, he had no family. He just did his thing. In this next lifetime, she wanted to develop her intellectual strengths. So she wanted to project a lifetime where she would be very focused on intellectual and intuition and analyzing in that respect and helping others. So she chose a life where she saw that where she would be injured, and it would force her to focus on reading, writing, and studying. What she chose, and this is amazing, she viewed this little life, and she was born to this wealthy family. that really wanted a child. They were late in life, thought they would never have a child, finally had this child. And they were in a carriage. And she was like 7, 8, 9 years old. And she knew that she was going to purposely, the soul was going, it was orchestrated that there would be an accident. And she somehow opened the door of the carriage, fell out of the carriage underneath the wheels of the carriage. The carriage ran over her legs and crippled her. And back in those days, I forget whether it was the 1700s or 1800s, there wasn't much they could do for crushed bones. It literally crushed her little bones. So they put little not fake legs, but wooden sticks so she could walk a little bit. But she was in constant pain. So the best thing that she would do to alleviate a lot of the pain was to stay in bed and to, stay on the sofa. And that's when she started reading and studying and researching, because she really couldn't do anything else. She couldn't go and play. And her parents were thrilled because they knew they were going to keep their little girl for a long time. And she did, she said, have a wonderful life in this incapacitated body, but that provoked her or prompted her to be a learned person. And she did a lot of writing, she did book writing, and she did a lot of working with people, helping them. So it was something that was intended, and it gave her what she needed to do. Now, I also had and I remember this woman here in my house that had a regression where she was a severely handicapped person. She says, I must have been horrendously distorted. My parents would take me for carriage rides on Sunday, but when people saw me, they would be, oh, they would point at me. And she says, I must have looked horrible. I must have looked horrible. And I was, a lot of people made fun of me and were shunned me because I looked so horrible. And I had a hard time expressing myself because I, was not only physically damaged, but I was mentally damaged, but I had loving parents. They were very patient and very caring with me. Okay. So she died in that lifetime. In this lifetime, because we always ask them after they see these, what does that mean to you? And she said, do you know what I do today? We go, no, what do you do today? She says, I work with handicapped and retarded children. I've been doing it for years and years and years. And she says, and I have an affinity for these people because I just seem to get it. I seem to know what they're thinking, what they need. So maybe sometimes in our long range plans, sometimes maybe we actually project ourselves into what we would perceive as a negative lifetime to learn something to help us in a future lifetime. One of the nicest women I've ever known, she had a lifetime and she said, Mary, my regression I just had right here with you in the life, she says, I was mean, I was nasty, I was a man, I was vulgar, I was just horrible. I hated everything and everybody. And we're looking at her because she's such a beautiful person today. And we're like, how could you possibly? Why would you go backwards? Why would you take a life where you're doing negative stuff? And she says, because in order for me to be a healer in this lifetime, to help therapeutically, help people, you have to understand the depth of hate, the depth of despair. You have to feel that to experience that. Otherwise, you're not going to be the strongest helper that you can be. So this was very, very interesting. I also want to mention past lives affecting us when they're in regressions, that you speak other languages under regressions. I may not know a certain language, but you may actually speak that a little bit under the regression. But my amazing story I had is I had a blind man in my class, and he had a CNI dog. I remember we did we dowsed the dog one night because we were doing auras, and I teach how you can dowse auras. It's really cool. You take dowsing rods and you dowse the auras. So we're doing that in my class. And he had the regression. And in his past life, he had sight. So he came out of that regression. He was so excited. because he saw the colors. He'd been blind all his life. He saw colors, he saw people, he saw everything in his memory from a past life that he had sight. I had another woman, she was talking, she says, oh my God, my past life, she says, I was deaf. And she's doing this, she says, I was deaf. And it was amazing because I've never been deaf before. And it was kind of a new experience. We're all looking at her and we're going, do you see what you're doing? She says, what am I doing? She was doing, the sign language. And the minute we called her attention to the fact that she was doing sign language, she couldn't do it anymore. It kind of blew her out of the water. But it's amazing the years I've had and seeing these past lives and experiences. So I do want to focus a little bit on how we come into our lives by choosing our parents and why we may choose our parents. The logical thing is that you've been with them before. You may have been with your mom, or you may have been with your dad. And parents sometimes have an affinity for one child versus the other child. They may feel a closeness to, and they feel guilty about it. They're like, you hate to have favorite children, but one of those children may have been with you before. So it's only logical that your souls have a better connection than the two other ones who may have known your husband or something. So it's very possible that you have loving relationships with your children because you've been with them before. And they chose you because they love you and they want to be a part of you and maybe part of a family. My next lifetime, I've already projecting my next lifetime. I want to be a part of a very strong, knit, driven family like the Kennedys. I want to, in this lifetime, I'm so alone. I just am so alone. I have no connections. I have nobody, all my stuff is, no one's really, there's no connections of people to talk to or to share. So my next lifetime, I have a lot of things I want to do, but I know I can't always do it alone. So I'm going to need connections. So that's one thing I wanted to. So I think all of us in our minds kind of like next lifetime, what do I want? But you could be with your mom and dad too, because you hated them or you had some negative aspects. And that's going to take a lot of repairing. But the best way that we can repair the damage that we have karmically is to be forced in a situation. And as we are with family, it's usually a kind of forced situation for 18 years until you leave home or whatever. So you have that opportunity and it's a clean slate. You don't remember anything. You may have these feelings behind you, but you don't absolutely remember, oh my God, I hated you in my last lifetime. So you have an opportunity to work things through. Okay. So we do choose our parents for that. We choose our parents, just like I mentioned, that they may provide you, you may not know either one, but they provide you with music, medicine, a career that you want. And they, because they're already in that career, can help you get a footing in it faster than if you were doing it on your own. So you may choose them for the environment that they can supply. Or, like in my case, you may choose the parents because you don't care. They are nothing more than a portal. All right. I needed to come in. I needed somebody to give me birth. So thanks, mom. Thanks, dad. High five. See ya. So there are those of us that are coming through that are just, I don't know my mom. I never knew my dad. I don't know these people. But they were, they gave me birth. And so I'm living because of that. So you may not know them. Your purpose may be for someone that you're going to meet later down on the road. And this whole thing about, oh, you got to meet your soulmate. All right. I see so many people in regressions and everything else. And Dolores Cannon talks about these. There's so many souls. That is not your destiny. We are not here just to fall in love, get married, live happily ever after. There is so much more. And if you're an individual and you want to spend your life with music, or if you want to learn and do other things and not get married and not have children, that's perfectly okay too. We all have our own destinies. We have our own reasons, and those are as beautiful and powerful as, any other ones. So I love hearing these students tell me that they're here for these different destinies, and that they feel sometimes that they should have, because we put so much pressure on people to find your mate and get married and have children, and maybe that wasn't what they're supposed to do, and that's okay. So we do choose our parents for various reasons, and we may choose them to teach them a karmic lesson. All right. Let's say your parents, one or the other, maybe did not treat children, or did something in their past. So karmically, they need to learn a lesson. And you are a beautiful soul that says, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be their child. And I'm going to help them learn a lesson. I will only live 4 years or 5 years, because one of their lessons they have to learn is the loss of a child. So when we look at it from a outside view, you go, oh, you died as a child because you were paying a karmic debt. Not necessarily. Maybe the karmic debt was to help your parents learn something, or your sisters, somebody else. So it was a karmic lesson. Children also, souls also come in to use a deformed or retarded body child. And you're like, why would you do that? Are you being punished? You're being forced into, using a damaged body. Well, no, maybe again, you're a beautiful soul that has chosen to come in and use this body for a period of time to help your parents learn compassion, patience, love, endurance. I have heard so many parents who have had, children with problems and issues, say that this child has taught them so much. They have learned so much from being and nurturing this child. So we grow from it, and they're here to grow, and they die maybe younger than they would, but they came through as they call them filler lives. It's a filler life that they come in for a period of time to help the parents learn a lesson. All right. I'm gonna pause for a minute here. Is there anybody who wants to say anything here? Does it make any sense?
Yeah, I definitely, this is a great conversation, Mary. I think this is a topic that I could probably go all night with people on, especially the past life regression part.
Uh-huh.
A lot earlier this evening, you were talking about like the scientists that got together and they were talking about all the like different mathematical equations.
Yeah.
I think the big takeaway from that meeting was that they determined that we are more likely living in a simulation rather than not.
Yes.
It was just much more mathematically possible. And
Okay.
I believe that's probably accurate because of all the different, I mean, there's like code and everything in nature and everything we do, and the opportunities for things to occur, and the randomness of it. It's just, everything is mathematically, it's hard to explain, but yeah, I definitely agree with that too. And a lot of these things that you're talking about, as far as all these different relationships between souls, between lifetimes, and that like planning period, I like to think of them as and this is how I've read it, they're called soul contracts. So you would get together with all the people in your soul group, and much like you were saying, you would all talk and say, oh, I'm ready to go back. Oh, you're ready to go back too? Okay, great. Then we'll get this soul contract between the two of us. And you accumulate soul contracts with all these people, most of them probably for karmatic purposes, where you want to learn different things or pay back certain debts. But I think at the end of the day, you get to choose who you want and what roles in your lifetimes. It's like getting like a play with all these different actors. And
Yep.
in this particular play, you guys are playing these specific roles. But in the next play, you could be playing different roles again. You might be a son and a mother in this lifetime, but in the next lifetime, that could be your partner or your child. You could reverse roles, or it could be like a best friend thing. So I mean, these roles transcend gender and and relation. I mean, it could be anybody. And even the person that, if you are unfortunate enough to get murdered in a lifetime, even that person that murdered you had a soul contract with you and loves you very much. Even though they killed you in this lifetime, you probably don't like that. There's a level of love there where that person, that the other soul agreed to take on that role to teach you and the other people that cared about you about that type of love that you could only understand if you were murdered. So I think the whole topic is amazing.
Where did you learn or hear anything about this Ring of Destiny or that deck thing that I was talking about where they choose? I thought you said something that you heard something too about that. No?
No, last week I had to leave early. I had an emergency at home, but I don't know much about the Ring of Destiny part. I mean, it sounds very fascinating. I just might not have come across that author's work. A lot of the stuff that I've learned from has either been from like Dolores Cannon and Robert Schwartz. Robert Schwartz has, I mean, that's basically his whole work right there is pre-birth planning. He asked the question like, you know, who cares about where you go when you die? What was I doing before I was born? And that's what he basically discovers. But that whole Ring of Destiny thing is pretty cool. I do agree with the fact where some people they deviate off course, maybe going down a certain path, and they might not realize or get to what they really wanted for themselves, and thus they missed a lot of relationships that they could have been across, and that would explain a lot. I mean, it really would when it comes to like suicides and other various terrible things that would happen. But I like to think also that our angels and our spirit guides, they're tasked with some of those really tough decisions. Like if you're veering too far off course, and this is what Robert Schwartz talks about. He said one of your angels might kind of help you walk off the curb into the street and get hit by a car. And you might think of that as being terrible, but to the angel, they're putting you back on your life's purpose, which you plan for yourself.
Yep. Good point. Excellent. Anybody else? So you did.
Kim's got her hand up, I think.
Go ahead.
You're on mute, Kim.
Kim, are you on mute? Did you want to say something? No.
There I go. I don't know. I'm sorry. My clicks are very weak. I have been. I was wondering, people who are Brian Weiss, who does the psychiatrist. Are everybody familiar with Brian Weiss?
Absolutely. I think he's from Harvard.
Okay. And he's a psychiatrist who used it therapeutically, past life regressions therapeutically for many years. He's written books about it, and he has a free recession on YouTube, which is excellent because it's done with a group, but it's intended to be watched at home.
Oh, okay.
34 minutes. So you just put in Brian Weiss in the YouTube search.
Okay.
It would pop up, and I found it very useful. I have about 18 pages of notes. And I would be interested if anybody, if it wouldn't be out of line to ask if anybody would be willing to share any insights that they might have gained from past life, had experiences. I don't know if people would feel comfortable talking about it, but I'd be very interested in knowing. It would kind of validate my own experience.
Absolutely. One of the gentlemen that I listened to back in 1980s his name is Dick Sutphin. And he came up with this. All right, let me show you here so you can better understand. These are cassettes that you can play and listen to. And I use these. I prefer my hypnotist, but he has all these sessions here that you'll see your higher self, back to the womb regression, the Atlantis Lemuria regression, life of your highest evolution, a basic past life regression. So they have all these different ones. And this is pretty cool stuff. I don't know, obviously now they would probably be on CDs and whatnot. And you just play it, and he literally brings you down into a relaxed state. But it's obviously in a recording, so that you have to go and listen to it and do what he tells you to do, and then he brings you out of it. You are not working with a hypnotist, so that when you see something exciting, your regression, your hypnotist, and actually says, okay, let's dig in a little bit deeper. Let's understand this a little bit better. You don't have that with this. This is like very superficial, but nonetheless, it did work, and you could actually see a lot of stuff. You're not able to write it down, and you're not talking, so you lose a lot of it that way also. But for a very quick something, you may want to try it. I don't even know if it's online anymore. He's from, like I said, that's from 1980s, 1990s. But he was very Past Lives, Future Loves. It was a book. You Were Born Again to Be Together, another book of his. And Dick Suffen is quite, I'm going to show the name too, because it's spelled Sutphen, Dick Suffen. Very interesting man. And Edgar Casey was another one. Yes. Back in the 80s, that's all I was able to read was Ruth Montgomery and Edgar Casey. And that's about it for the bookshelves. So, you were really restricted, but they were very, very good. And Edgar Casey did a lot of predictions, or not predictions. Well, he did predictions too, but he did a lot of assessing a person's issues. And people would go to him and say, I have a pain, or I have a relationship issue, and he would focus on them. And I remember this one situation where there was a man who had asthma, and he had been to so many doctors, and the doctors, would give him prescriptions, but they couldn't understand what was causing his severe asthma. And he would go to the point where he'd almost suffocate, and then he'd be able to breathe again. So it was horrible. It went on for years and years and years. And he went to Edgar Casey, and Edgar Casey lies there in a trance. He lies there, and his son usually records or writes down his information. And he says, I see you, I see this being, I see you as I see you, I have you, and I see what you did. You, back in World War II or whatever, you were in charge of one of the concentration camps. And you were in charge of gassing. And you took great pleasure in doing your job. Because there's some of us that do jobs because we have to. We get paid for it, and we may hate it. He enjoyed this. I mean, he was into it. And he says, therefore, in this lifetime, karmically, you have to pay for this, what you did. And you suffocate over and over again with this asthma as a lesson of how horrible it was for what these people went through. And it'll be for the rest of your life. There is no cure. And that was that poor man's future, his results. So sometimes you don't want to know. But I've worked so many years with these regression hypnotherapists, and what we've healed and what we've found out, and the stories they tell just catch you by surprise, way out of the blue, like, what? There's one person, I think it was Rebecca, the one that's in charge of the Beyond Center. She has a thing with her mother. She says, I think my mother hates me. And they were in a past life together in Ireland or something. And she lived by those cliffs of Dover, or, the sharp cliffs. And they lived close by. And as a little girl, she would run and get really close to the edge of the cliffs. And her mother would yell at her all the time, stop, you're going to get hurt. You're going to die. You're going to fall off the cliff. And one day she said, my mother came out. Her mother today was her mother back then too. And her mother grabbed her and acted like she was going to throw her off the cliff, and terrified her. And in the regression, she sees her mother, but her mother was just trying to do it to scare her. Kind of like you hold the kid's hand over the fire to show it's hot. And she was just doing that to scare her. Well, the trauma set in because she never realized that in that lifetime. And in this lifetime, she harbored it as a soul with her mother until the regression. And when she saw that her mother did it out of love and out of the fear of her falling off the cliff, it totally changed everything. changed the whole dynamic. So it is interesting what we've seen through the regression for pains and for trauma and that kind of thing. We used to have fun nights at my house. I had a group that about 5 or 6 of us that would meet every Friday or twice a week, month or something. And we reached a point where we had been through so many regressions, we decided to focus on the most horrible regression we ever had. So we all had a contest to see who had the worst death. And I remember mine, I was impaled by a lance, you know, those long 6-foot lances. And I was a warrior and I was on the battlefield and, you know, I'm charging, doing something around. I went, oh, ow. And I looked down, there's this lance coming through my belly all the way out. And it's about 3 feet on one side and about 3 or 4 feet on the other side. And they left it in me. So I fall down and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I'm going to die. I was a young, healthy man. I remember, you know, unlike the movies where you get stabbed and you die immediately, it took me all day to die slowly. I didn't let anybody pull it out. And my soldier buddies kind of hung around and they felt sorry for me and they said goodbye, but I didn't die and I didn't die. So finally they would go on off to war and I was by myself and I finally did die. It took me hours and hours and hours. So that was my death. But the guy that won that day was a guy that got eaten by the shark. He was a sponge diver off the coast of Italy or somewhere, and he freelances and sponge dives. And he says, oh, I'm swimming in the water. I'm sponge diving. I'm getting the sponges. Uh-oh, there's a shark. And I remember looking at the hypnotist thinking, oh, this isn't going to be pretty. I'm like, better cut it, you know, stop it. And it happened too fast. We couldn't pull him out in time, but he won the award for the night. I mean, it's very vivid and you don't really experience the pain, but it is very traumatic and it can be very, very vivid and it can be a real deep-seated problem in your life. So one of the things I want to talk about was fears, phobias, things in our past that are causing issues today. And there can be relationship issues. Oh my God, the relationship issues. I can't get along with my son. So you hypnotize him and you find out back in the 1600s, blah, 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 blah happened. So by dealing with past life regression and focusing on issues, phobias, fears, pain, some people actually have marks on them, physical things on their body that under regression, we find out that was the sword that cut them. That was an animal that attacked the back of their neck. And they have marks on the back of their neck that they bring with them in this lifetime. And they don't know what it is, but under regression, you know, we find out. Maybe. Is that true or not? I don't know. But they come up with these stories. And when you're under regression, I'm telling you, you see things and it comes up like this, boom, boom, boom. If I tell you to make up a story about being an Indian in a teepee in the Wild West, and I want you to tell me it, you're going to tell me a story, but you're going to pause as you go through it, trying to think, okay, what was the time period? What do I really see? And you try to make up a story. Under regression, the stories are you're going like this. You're talking as fast as the information is coming to you. You're seeing a vision and you're trying to tell the hypnotist, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that, I'm seeing this. And it's going really, really fast. You don't have time to make anything up. You're surprised as things come out of your mouth. You're like, whoa, where'd that come from? I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have pictured that. If I was going to make up something, that's not what I would have said. So we're picking up this information from somewhere. Now, there's airways, there's television shows, there's, you know, all kinds of things floating through the sky that you could grab and pull in as a past life. I had a woman downstairs one time. I had a whole group of them being regressed downstairs. And I was upstairs and I was watching a TV show. I just didn't feel like being, it was so, I didn't have room down there. Usually I'll stay down there, but I didn't have room. So I was up here. And the TV show on there was Airplane. And it was, we have quite a few of the airplane shows, but this airplane show was the one where the plane crashes and sinks to the bottom of the ocean and everybody's alive in the plane and they're waiting to get saved or whatever. So after the regressions, we always ask and allow people to go around and tell each other what they saw. Meanwhile, they're all writing down in their pads what they saw. But by telling others what they saw, it helps them remember better. I saw this when you asked about, the hypnotist will say, what are you wearing? Touch your hair. What do you see? What are you eating? Where are you going? Ask those questions. So as somebody relates to it, everybody else hears it and everybody remembers, oh yeah, for that, I remember this. One lady woke up, she said, during the regression because she felt she was underwater trapped in a plane. Okay. So it wasn't her life. It wasn't. She picked up my thought maybe of watching television. Some people actually laying next to each other will have a regression very similar to the person next to them because they're not having their own. They're picking up. Remember we talked about telepathy and we're all, all the energy coming from us. We're picking up that thought process from the other person. So it may not be their own. But focusing on the pain, I mean, this is amazing. We've had people with arthritis find out what it is and they get past in the past regression, they understand it and they let it go so that they don't harbor it in this life or in this body. Relationship issues, yeah. I mean, if you always have a little, uncomfortable feeling every time your husband puts his hand around your neck, and then you find out in the past life he strangled you, now you know where that kind of uncomfortable feeling is from, and you're working out the karma. So it's very, very amazing working with past life regressions of what they see and what they bring out. We've done future life progressions, which are kind of interesting. We haven't done any since the 90s. So, but supposedly you can do that, which is interesting. You can try. Past life regressions, I love taking my group. I do now in my class, way, way back before fire. I tell them way back before fire. I do that for two reasons. Number one, I don't want anything right now that they can relate to, but taking them way, way back. It's amazing. And the information we're getting is not Earth. And I'm like, where are you? Oh, I'm on Earth. I like, no, you're not. That's not in our history books. So either our history books are fake or these regressionists are fake. I lean towards the regressions being real and our books being fake, because as we're going to talk about next week, there is monoliths all over the world that say that there were other civilizations that were here that have come and gone millions of years ago, high level technology, and they've been there and they disappeared, and they've been there and they disappear. So we are new. we're newbies here, but Earth is very, very old. All right. Any of you have, all right, let me just ask you for fun. If you have a issue that you think that if you went to a regressionist, that it may actually help you. Do you have a fear, a phobia, or an issue that you think, maybe this is something? Huh? Yeah, go ahead.
I can say I had a past life regression done through the Dolores Cannon group, thinking that I was going to resolve my fear of heights. That's really the main reason why I went. Mm-hmm. But I didn't.
It didn't. You almost need one-on-one with the regression therapist to
and
be
it
able
was.
to. Oh, it was. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've watched Norton Berkowitz. I mean, he's amazing. He was one of my main ones, and he will poke, and you'll sidestep, but he knows there it is, and he'll poke until finally you go, yes, there it is, and you're like, whoa, okay, there's the real story. And you have to be prepared for it, because some of the drama and trauma is beyond what you really want to relive or see again. Drowning in a submarine, this is trauma. This is scary stuff. Fortunately, if you start feeling upset, the hypnotist will always tell you to shift out of it and observe from above and watch it. I mean, we healed one woman who had what is that colic? There's Crohn's disease. She had Crohn's. And we did a past life regression to see if there was anything to do with her Crohn's disease. And she actually was on an island and she was walking along a path and she froze and she says, "Oh no." And she refused to go forward. And Norton kept pushing her and nope, she wouldn't go forward. She wouldn't go forward. Finally, he got her to go forward. And she said, "There's a cat, a large, like a panther or a lion or something." And as she walked into a clearing, it pounced on her and with its claws, it ripped her guts out. And the trauma supposedly of that is manifesting itself today as, the Crohn's disease. So he told her basically to leave that in the past, to not bring it forward. And then what he does, he tries to take something positive from that lifetime. So they focus on that versus the other. It's amazing what they can do. And I don't know whether she got better or what, because I didn't follow her. I've done so many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. I don't follow them, but they would be very interesting to document. And I've had some that have sent me letters later on saying, "Remember this regression I had?" And they'll actually document it and say how it helped heal her arthritis and do this and that and the other. So it is always rewarding to hear that come back. But reincarnation in itself is fascinating. How many lives do we have? Can we go back to ancient times? If I'm hypnotizing my class back before fire, I went back before fire. And I went back before fire and I was under for an hour and a half and we have it taped. And I was in a beautiful building, like a temple built into the rocks made out of marble. But I lived very simply. I lived on straw, but we were learning and being taught. And I learned and I knew how to run with anti-gravity so that I could barely skim along. I wasn't, hitting my legs hard. I was skimming along. It was amazing. We were being educated. I had given to me by the teachers, we're all in white robes, given by the teachers, these metal, like a soup can, okay? And the soup can would be flat. So you have a metal flat piece. And what the teacher would do would be hold it here and impregnate into it a lesson and then give it to us. And we would go out, and I remember hiding in some bushes. There were rose thorny bushes because at that time, there were things that flew around that could hurt you. And I would hold this to my chest, and in a relaxed mode, I would get the lesson from the teacher that was not only a verbal flap your lips type of thing, but impressions and caring and energy of that lesson. And it came from this metal piece. And I wonder, what if we went to a cave and found this flat little metal soup can flat thing laying on stacked up, a whole bunch of them. And people would pick it up and say, "Oh, a little metal thing," not realizing that it's full of information. We're going to talk next week about some of the things, the crystal skulls and those kind of technology that people have found. But I marvel at that, and that we knew anti-gravity. And we were simple, but we were being educated. And it was amazing lifetime. It really was amazing. And it certainly threw me off because I really feel I was on Earth. I really do. But it was in ancient times, back before fire, if you will. So I do love taking my students back, way, way back. And I had one that talked about being underwater, that they lived in a bubble underwater in our ocean. And she said, it's not glass. It is like a vibration pushing the water. And you could actually put your hand through and touch the water. And it's a sound vibration or an energy vibration. And the animals, the fishes are swimming around. And she was of there were societies. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is amazing. I love it. I did my daughter, and she went somewhere where it was like there was octangular wheels and all kinds of things. And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating, the information that they come from. Now, as a child, I had a terrible fear, not a fear. For Halloween, they would take pumpkins and sometimes put them on picket fences, and I would almost want to throw up. I get so upset. Or if I watched on TV and, you know, they had guillotines or whatever for cartoons, and they would chop the head off. And I would always say as a child, that's not how it really is. I said, there's strings and things attached. This is a child, little girl. And I had a regression. And it turned out I lived in Paris, and I lived there during the peasant revolt. I was a Duchess of Edinburgh, but there's lots of duchesses of everything. So, but I've been married to a Parisian, which happened to be my husband back then. And I remember walking the streets, and I was aware of the sewer in the streets. I've never seen that. You know how it just runs past you and this stinks or whatever. And I remember the peasants' revolt, and of course they were putting the heads on the picket fences. And it was fascinating. I remember something about Australia and that people were being sent to Australia as a punishment. And so things that are historical are wonderful things to find out during a regression. And I remember that at the end, I was in a room with several other aristocrats, and the peasants were breaking down the door to come get us. And I remember I'd been trained to create fumes from leaves, and you put a leaf here, you put a leaf on top, a leaf on top. If you light them, then they burn and create a fume, and you inhale it and it'll kill you. But see, you can't exactly practice doing that. So you can hear them banging down the door downstairs. We're upstairs locked in a room, and there's like 6, 7, 8 of us, and they're yelling at me, hurry, hurry. And I'm like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? And then everything went black. So I don't know if they broke down the door and got to us, or if I figured it out and got those leaves and we breathed them in and died. But it's fascinating. And I highly recommend, if you have an opportunity to do a past life, to absolutely do it. I had a life on, what are the islands? Nantucket. And I went with a girlfriend of mine. She says, Mary, let's go check out your regression. I had notes, you know, about my name and the company I worked, my family had. The business was a goods business, you know, bolts of goods. So we actually went there, and I went to the town center, and I sat there and I said, hi, I'm buried here. Could I look at some of the old books and do some research? And the young girls are like, yeah, this is cool. So we did research. We went out to find my house, which it was in an area that had been burned down. It doesn't exist anymore. That area got burned. So I was a Quaker. I don't know anything about Quakers, but under regression, I knew about the book, and I knew about this, and I knew about that, and I knew the buildings, and I drew the buildings without any windows downstairs. There were windows upstairs. I knew all this under regression. Could it be history? Yeah, it could have been history. It was fascinating. So I think that, I won't call it scientific, but that kind of stuff validates it a little bit better. But even then, you know, you can pick up history books. You can do anything like that. All right, I'm gonna pause for a minute and see who else wants to talk. Anybody else? Anybody else have a regression or that kind of thing that they want to share?
I had a couple past life regressions, like probably in the last year and a half, 2 years. And it was definitely interesting. I had a good time experiencing it. I had heard so much about it up to this point from reading like the Edgar Cayce materials and Dolores Cannon. And so it sounds really crazy from the beginning, but it really wasn't that bad. But it was still, I mean, you don't feel anything. So you don't physically feel it. At least I didn't. So I believe I was murdered by aliens. And it just sounds so sci-fi when you first hear that. And when I was experiencing it, I was constantly questioning my brain. Like, is this actually happening right now? Like, this is what I'm seeing. Because like the whole regression technique to get there, it's basically just a hypnotherapist walking you through some exercises which relax your brain and get you to a place where you can, you know, access this stuff. So like, you know, that was all pretty normal. And then next thing you know, and I'm in this area, it felt like a predated Egypt. It was like ancient Sumeria. It kind of felt like something out there in the Middle East, but way, way long ago. And the weird part about it was everything had a red hue to it. It wasn't, it was all red. Yeah, it almost felt like I was on Mars, but I knew I wasn't on Mars. But it felt like I was on Mars, so like the redness. And I
Why-
was
Say that. Why do you know it wasn't? Because there were civilizations on Mars. So
later on, after I had this regression, I learned some things which
Oh.
really made me think. And I mean, it's another crazy thing, but I'll get to that at the end. So in this regression, I was like some kind of like spiritual leader, or like I was working with the king, or I was an advisor to the king or something, like the pharaoh or whoever was in charge. I was like part of his cabinet, so to speak. And the aliens were coming down and everybody was so excited. Like everybody was running around because they like thought of them as gods, and they would bring things, and they were bringing like technology or magic, like whatever everybody wanted to see. Like the aliens were coming, yay. And and I remember distinctively that they were coming on like a cycle. It was like every like 10,000 years or some kind of like cycle. Like, so in other words, they don't come around too often, so you better get excited. But because of the stuff I was doing, I didn't like them. I didn't trust them. And I was basically warning everybody like, hey, these guys are they're pretty bad. They're no good. And then when they came, they didn't speak to everybody. Like they showed up, they're like, their ships came down and all that, mumbo jumbo. And when they came out, they weren't speaking to everybody. They were speaking to everybody telepathically through their minds. And that's how they were speaking. And people were bringing them all kinds of stuff. Like they were bringing all kinds of, not like sacrifices, but like dedications or something like that. Like they were bringing them gold and animals and like different minerals and stuff. Like they were like pledging to them.
Yeah.
And the aliens were pretty happy, but I was continuing to speak out against them. So they made my own people. Basically, long story short, they told my people basically to kill me. And they did it they had control over the other people because I was speaking out of them and I was becoming a problem. And I remember being like held, and all these guys were like holding my arms, and I was like trying to shake away, and they stabbed me in the stomach with a sword. And then afterwards, I was with the regression therapist, and she was saying that, like, because I do have stomach issues in this lifetime, and she made the correlation. She's like, well, you got stabbed in the stomach. It's probably a good chance. And to go back on what Karen was saying earlier with the fear of heights, a lot of the times the regressions can help understand why you're having these like situations, like in your case, heights. I don't think it's always going to necessarily like cure it. I don't think it's going to always make it go away, but I think it's very healthy to understand why you would be experiencing some of these things.
Sure.
So, and then the whole red thing was weird because I didn't know this, but like probably, I don't know, like 6 months later, I was like reading this theory about how some people believe that our solar system was a binary system and we had two suns at one point. One of them being, I think it was like Saturn. I think Saturn or Jupiter. One of them, the theory goes, one of them used to be a star, and it was much closer in proximity to Earth. And if it was actually, like some scientists hypothesized that if it was actually like a star it's like a brown dwarf star near us, it would have made our atmosphere, it would have made everything red on our planet. And this would have been a long time ago. And if you look at a lot of ancient civilization drawings, especially from the days of Sumeria, they show basically the sun with all these, like with a ring around it. I have to send it to you. It's so bizarre. Like they show these things where Saturn, Earth, Mars, and Venus used to all be in alignment at one point. And there's like this disc shape. And that explains why all these civilizations used to worship Saturn, and the satanic, like kind of belief systems, like they used to worship Saturn straight up. And there's all these weird, like David Icke goes into it a lot. But they said like, if this was an actual real alignment, if it was in close proximity, that's how it would have appeared in our atmosphere and everything would have been red. So that was bizarre coming across afterwards. But I mean, I think a lot of the stuff you learn in your regression just kind of helps you get an understanding of the challenges or the things you're experiencing in this life. And another one, I won't go into all the details, but the other one I had, my family got murdered. And a lot of the times, like the biggest fears I have in this current lifetime or bad things happening to my family. And then I have the second regression experience was literally my family getting murdered in front of me. So it made sense, I still fear that too. It didn't make it go away. If anything, it reinforced it even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Holy cow. In relationship to you saying that the beings were coming from the stars, I had not me, but my people were regressed. They said, oh yeah, the beings are coming from the stars and they're teaching us things, but they don't teach all of us. they only teach the
Mm.
leaders or the chiefs or, the high ranking, the people that are smarter maybe, or
That
can
makes sense.
telepathically pick up the information. But here starts the hoarding of that kind of information. Do you see this?
Which is
They-
happening right now.
Exactly. They give it to they think they're helping the whole tribe. They give the information to the chief. The chief is supposed to turn around and give the information to everybody, but he's like, wow, everybody's kind of looking up to me because I got the information. I'm not going to give all this information. I'm going to kind of stay cool, and
It's
everybody's
power.
up to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
power,
Inform-
control. And there it goes. It's going, it's been there. But you also said there might have been two suns. There's a lot of information that there was not a moon.
No,
That
the
there-
moon, they don't even know how old it is. The moon that we have now, they know so little about the moon, how it's created, where it came from. There's tons of theories, but nobody actually knows for sure. If
Right.
anything, the research that we do have suggests that the moon is older than the planet Earth.
Oh, it is. I
And-
think rocks they brought back down were,
Yeah.
old Earth, yes.
And it's hollow. Did you hear about the time that when we landed on the moon? So in order for us to successfully leave the moon, the capsule, which would take off and return back to, wherever, I don't understand fully where the astronauts, like how that worked. All I do know is as they were taking off, they had to release a portion of the ship back at the moon. And when
Mhm.
this piece of when this piece of spaceship or capsule hit the moon, it
Mhm.
reverberated like a bell for
Yep.
like 10 hours or something like that, 10, 12 hours.
Yep.
So when NASA heard this, they were like, whoa, what the hell is that? And this is a theory that suggests that the moon is actually hollow and there's like a spaceship inside of it. So the next time they went to the moon, they wanted to do the same thing, but this time they wanted to double it. They wanted to make it much more noticeable and measurable. So they hit it with basically, and of course our technology probably advanced quite a bit from the next time. They hit it with even a bigger piece as they were taking off from the moon. They let go of it and it hit, and it was probably twice the size, everything. It reverberated twice as long, and they measured the whole thing.
Yep.
So there's no actual proof, but
Yeah.
I think there's definitely something going on with the moon. They said that its placement in the Earth's orbit suggests that a Swiss watchmaker placed it. It fits perfectly in the circumference of the sun.
Yep.
It controls all of our tides and life on the planet. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility to suggest that this thing was placed there to promote life on this planet
Right.
and monitor us.
And we're going to talk about that a lot more in the next couple of weeks when we talk about the space program and whatnot. But I wanted to mention in conjunction with this, yesterday I was listening to John Lear. I don't know if you've ever heard of John Lear. He's been at all the UFO conferences. He's amazing. And he was talking about the secret technology and the moon, which I'm not going to get into, but he said something that blew me away. He said there was a remote viewer. His name is Mick Monagle, and he's written lots of books on remote viewing. And he was asked to remote view an accident victim, a car accident victim in San Francisco. And he was remote viewing the soul as it left the car accident and go somewhere. And he was remote viewing what happened to the soul. Where did the soul go? Okay. He said he followed it from Earth to the moon. All right. And he said, as I, in remote viewing, was following the soul to the moon, a voice came out saying, stop. You are not allowed to come any closer. And it kept saying this over and over again. Stop. You are not allowed to come any closer. He says each time it said it, it got more aggressive and more prominent to the point where he feared for his life and he backed off. I'm like, what the heck was that?
This sounds like something that's in conjunction with the soul traps. Is that where you're leading to?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I've never heard of this guy, but I've written his name down because I'm certainly going to research it. But this definitely sounds like the program. I mean, they're basically keeping us here. And I mean, I don't know how much I believe in it, but I know of it. And I think it's definitely interesting.
It's terribly frightening. And I mentioned that a little bit last week about how karmically I'm concerned that when we go up there, we seem to be happy, wonderful, and blah, 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 but go back down. And it's like, can we like not go back down and go to God? Can I leave and go to God? See ya? And I don't know. Can we? Maybe. Because I do believe God is out there and we are God particles and we belong with God. And, you know, is there a net around Earth that is soul harvesting? It's called soul. There's books out now called Soul Harvesting. You can Google it and find out about soul harvesting and that we're being recycled. And why are we being recycled? For energy, for money, for whatever, whoever, whatever. Because I like to project love and power and beauty on this, you know, these classes I teach, I want to hesitate to advocate that we are captured souls. However, I think it's very important for us also to be aware of the possibilities that maybe going to the white light or going through the over and over process is not what our souls are supposed to be doing. It's beautiful, it's learning, it's growing, and we certainly have a lot of work to do on Earth because I think all of Earth, our souls, our brothers and sisters, we need to elevate the energy on Earth. But what if we're trying to elevate the energy on Earth, but we've got clones and soulless beings running around and aliens and everything else weighing it down? How much more work are we going to have to do to elevate this Earth because we have all these infiltrators, you know? So we're going to talk a lot more about that next week when we get into the space programs and ancient Earth, because we're going to talk about the Nephilim, we're going to talk about the Anunnaki,
Really?
Atlantis and Lemuria, and they were very intertwined with Mars and all of that. In fact, there's so much information, it is hard to decipher because it seems like Edgar Cayce said some things, but all the new stuff says different things. So it's very, very difficult.
They're going to jump into the book of Enoch with the Nephilim?
I have not read the whole book of Enoch, but the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, the gods, maybe the DNA, the messing with our genome, you know, the whole, and we say messing with us, again, that is the human body, the avatar that they're messing with, not the souls. The souls are, you know, we're part of God. They can't mess with the souls, but they can mess with the human body, which they're going to be doing now too. But I'm not going to get into that. But so who's been messing with us? Who's been creating different gene splicing? You know, even our brains. I was in school. They said, "Oh, we only use what? 20% of our brain or 50." And I raised my hand. I said, why would you say in Darwin that we create bodies to work with our environment? Why would we have something that we're not using? Did we use it before and we're not using it now? I mean, what happened? Why aren't we using everything? Could it be our DNA was missed? I heard that, you know, the DNA splices were taken out. So we're not even whole, you know? So, okay, who's messing with our DNA? They have no right to do that. So
yeah, they mess with it for sure. It's like junk DNA. They say like 80% of our DNA is junk DNA, which is just another way of saying they have no idea, like, or they're hiding it from us, what it's actually really capable of.
Yep. I mean, you get the third eye, you know, all these things that supposedly fluoride, you know, clouds the third eye. And it's like, so by becoming aware, we can start becoming activists in the little bit that we can. You know, if we can get fluoride out of the water, I mean, that's huge. If we can stop the spraying of the chemtrails, which they have to a large degree stopped. I don't know what that was up to, but the chemtrails, I mean, all these things, if you're not aware of them, then you're going to be a victim, you know. It's the pharmaceuticals, you know, all of this type of thing. But yes, this the harvesting and there's a lot of information out there now about the cycle and whether we need to break the cycle. And I do love reading. In fact, I'm trying to think a couple of authors that talk a lot about breaking the cycle of karma, the law of reincarnation.
There's a YouTube channel called the Farsight Institute, and they have a video dedicated to a lot of the stuff that we've been discussing in this class, but in particular the soul traps. And it's really interesting. These people are definitely probably the most talented remote viewers I've seen in action, and they put it all on YouTube. Unfortunately, they also do have paid content in which they need to make money for you to access, but they do put an awful lot of free content on there as well. But it's called the Farsight Institute. Very, very interesting.
Excellent. Excellent. I, and talking about this all being a hologram, I mean, there's books out, this is a holographic universe and blah, 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 which is kind of hard in the different timelines. And you can be going around on one and then the timeline shifts because of our thought processes. And if we are being herded in a certain thought process this way to create a different timeline than God wants us to be, perhaps going this way, that is by watching television and being fed the propaganda and being sent emotions and putting us in a certain frame of mind, and they're directing us. So becoming aware of this, we're like, okay, click, TV's off. I'm not going to be subjected to that. I'm not going to allow you to do this to me. So it's part of our soul becoming aware. And that's what this huge awareness program is becoming. But my point is, I remember my son, my nephew, he got those goggles where you put them on and you go into a virtual world, and you can see him swinging at, things and punching things, and I'm like, wow, that is so cool. I put him on there. It was amazing. You're in a totally different world. How sophisticated does that get until you reach a point where you don't want to come out? I mean, if these goggles are like the coolest, neatest thing. And so are we like in that now? Are we like souls that are in kind of a hologram deck? Is that how they can project a future? Because they're literally, on the Star Trek, they're showing a hologram deck and you can choose that one, or that one, or that one. And you just push the button and you go in. I don't know. It's all crazy, isn't it? But, you can only take what you can work with and can actually use to make this world better. So it's wonderful to stretch your mind and go out there and the what ifs and the what ifs and the what's, but we come back to how can we focus on helping each other attain a higher spiritual level and a higher spiritual outlook, and right now. And that's what we need to do and garner. And, if it's, I've had students over my years of teaching 40 some years that have quit their jobs and have become homeopaths, have become past life regression therapists, that have become gyms, where you heal with the gyms, or oils, you heal with the oils, Reiki healing. So they have embraced aspects of what they're learning and changed their lives to help others. Rebecca, she's become, a medium, and she helps people who are looking for the people who've crossed over. They're desperate. They're in trauma. So it's wonderful to see so many people changing their lives and utilizing it to help others today. And that's what we're all about, is making a difference, because what we do as a leader are going to help our children as they come up through the ranks. My poor grandsons, I talk to him all the time, and he said, oh, we're celebrating Thanksgiving. I said, we killed the Indians and took their land, kid. So don't do this whole Thanksgiving thing. Reality, this is what's true. Poor little kids. So anyway, it's what they need. My parents didn't do that to me. My parents like, okay, everything's fluff, and my mother was, Tinkerbell and unicorns. That's how life is. Isn't that wonderful? Well, it's not. And it's something that we need to learn what is real and what is being fake and forced on us. So anyway, all right.
Can I
Yes,
just say something?
absolutely.
Yeah, Mark, I'm reading the 3 books of Enoch and
Oh,
the
wow.
Book of Giants. Yeah,
Wow. That's
very
pretty intense.
It
And
is.
people, it's quite the story. And I think in the book of Enoch, what's so special about it, it's backed up by like some like ancient religious texts that were found.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Exactly,
it
right.
really rocks people's world when they learn about all this stuff and giants and like the spawn of like angels and demons, and it's pretty intense.
It is really. So, yep, and what's his name? Is it Metatron? I can't remember his name, but
Archangel Metatron.
yeah, I just finished reading about him too. It was in the Jewish version of it.
Oh yeah, he's on. Archangel Metatron is one of the only archangels that actually lived a human incarnation, and he's basically the keeper of the Akashic records.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's blowing my mind. I can't believe it. So yeah, but I just wanted to mention that because you had mentioned talking about it. So yeah, excellent book. Yeah.
That's almost something that could do a whole class on, is to have people, having a discussion on that book.
Right.
I haven't read it. What you said, there's 3 of them? 3 books?
Yeah, in the book I have, it's got the 3 books of Enoch.
Oh,
Okay. And then it's also got the 4th book, which is the Book of Giants. But the
Okay.
3 books of Enoch, are various ones that show the different forms of it. And then the
Okay.
Giants is kind of separate, but they're all related. But whereas the first 2 were more like basically, if you lead a good life, you'll get to heaven. Okay. But then the 3rd book, that's the Jewish version of the Book of Enoch. And that's a little bit different. And it's basically a lot about Metatron or whatever, the archangel, and the things he tells the rabbi about. And it's amazing. And I just finished that this morning. And now tomorrow I'm going to start with the Book of Giants. But it's not very big. It's only a few pages.
wonderful. Yeah.
But it's just a very interesting book. So yeah.
Yeah, it's got the intrigue of a lot of people. I mean, I did a post about it on my social media, and it like exploded with so many people who were interested in the topic as a whole. So yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, and why was it left out of the Bible in the
Right,
first
it's so
place?
controversial. It's basically
Yeah.
talking about God's angels coming down and fornicating with humans. Like we're not supposed to be fornicated with by angelic beings.
Yeah,
And
so
they
yeah,
created a race that was basically a bastard of universe. They don't want that. They had to eliminate it, snuff it out, and that's why all these angels basically were fallen from grace. And it's definitely very controversial.
definitely, yeah. So
Good. Excellent.
yeah, so I just wanted to tell you, especially
Yeah.
tell Mark about that.
Thanks for
Good.
sharing.
Anybody else? All right. Well, it's 9 o'clock. My time flies by, doesn't it? Wow. All right. Next week, like I said, is going to be Atlantis and Lemuria and ancient civilizations, Inner Earth, which I love. Inner Earth, the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, which is a lot going on lately. I don't know if you've been reading about it. A lot of stuff getting blown up underground and saving the children and stuff. Ancient hidden technology and archaeological discoveries. So certainly if you have some information about this stuff too, please bring it with you so that we can have discussions also. All right, well, wonderful seeing everybody again. Have a wonderful week, and hopefully I'll see you again next Wednesday. Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Mary, love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much, everybody.